What's happening, people? Today is a huge video because I will be ranking all of the Star Wars films from worst to best. So from the dark side all the way to the light side. This one is one that I've been looking forward to doing for so long. I love the Star Wars films, and I just feel like it is where my love for film began when I was a child, and really it was where my interest in home media really came into play. You know, with THX and all of the sound design that goes into these films, I got into it when I was growing up. And yeah, this is where it all starts, people. So enjoy. And before I actually get into it, I do want to put a disclaimer. You know, people can be kind of hostile when it comes to these films just because of how close they are to their heart, and I get it. This is just my list, people. This isn't just like the definitive be-all, end-all list. Let me know what yours is down below. I would love to hear it. And you know what? Let's just all have a discussion about it without freaking out and losing our minds. With that being said, in my opinion, the worst Star Wars film is Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. This movie is just an attack on boredom. It is just an onslaught of boredom for me. With the whole mystery that is in this movie and how the Jedi are just detectives, I didn't like it. I felt like it was boring. And with the worst of the acting, I feel like the acting in this film is the worst out of all of the prequels. It is bad. It is the movie that is supposed to have the most emotion to it, and it is the movie that lacks the most emotion and thuds the hardest. I will say that at the end there is a kick-ass action scene that I love, and during that whole last half with the battle, it is amazing. I very rarely find myself getting to that point of the movie because I turned it off before that. This movie is a slog. And now for the one that is probably the most controversial, just because I have to change my stance on it, and it is the only film that I feel like I need to change my stance on. When I first saw The Last Jedi, I feel like I was reacting to a movie that was very different, and at that point in time, I felt like that's what I wanted. And I just kind of ignored the weirdness that is this movie and how tonally inconsistent it is to the whole entire series. But here, now, I can say I get the people that don't like this movie, and I feel like it is just a movie that tries really hard to give us something new, but it also just enforces the fact that, yes, new doesn't mean good, and this ain't good. There is so many characters in this movie that I feel like it doesn't know what to do with all of them. So a lot of them just get like sidelines, side stories, and just things that don't even have to happen, don't even matter. And just the storytelling in this particular episode just really let me down. It really forced me to not like some characters like Rey, where I liked her in The Force Awakens, but here she is just one note, gritting her teeth through the whole thing and just screaming at people. Next has to be Episode 1. Wow. This movie is what actually killed my fandom. I was a super fan of Star Wars growing up until this particular movie, and I felt like I had to distance myself from it just because of the impact that this movie had on me. Now, I would say that in hindsight, there are worse movies than Episode 1 in the saga, but none have impacted me the worst like this film. With the inclusion of Jar Jar and the overabundance of just things that I don't want in a Star Wars movie. Like Jar Jar, like just the politics and the trade routes and all of that. It wasn't the story that I needed it to be, and it continuously focused on the things that I didn't want it to focus on. And wow, I I've since come back and realized that there are some things to like about it. Darth Maul in particular is awesome. I love the lightsaber battle at the end. It is my favorite out of the whole entire saga. But other than that, this movie's a mess. So next has to be Rogue One. And that is because of the fact that I feel like this movie, it has the least memorable characters. And it, you know, all the Disney Star Wars films, with the exception of Force Awakens, really has a problem with characters and knowing what to do with them. And this movie, I know that it has a lot cut out of it. Out of all the Star Wars films that Disney has made, this particular movie has the most cut out of it. And a lot of it had to do with the lead character here, her plight and her arc. It didn't do it for me. And I largely felt like this movie, I needed an in character, and I didn't get it. And up until the end, I am always really bored by this movie. And then the end fight on the beach, well, come on, that is awesome. And Star Wars movie gold. Next, you're getting into the middling Star Wars movies with Solo. Now, I do not hate this movie. There are some people that hate this movie. I don't know why. This movie is just popcorn fun at its core. And I feel like I watched this movie from a distance. I never really disengaged, but I am never really 100% engaged, to say the least. I'm just really just watching it, having a fun time. A lot of the references are heavy-handed, and the lead actor here doesn't really pull off Han Solo. And the beginning half of this movie, before it finds its groove, is a little choppy. But, I mean, this movie is a fun ride that I can forgive for its shortcomings. Next is the one that I've actually seen the least, because it's the newest. That's Episode 9. This movie wasn't as a abomination for me as some people thought it was, and I just kind of felt like it was just okay popcorn fun. But when you get into the logic holes that this movie wants to put forth, and just, again, not knowing what to do with all of the characters, I really feel like Disney should have just picked either new characters or old characters and really just tried to focus on that. But when you want to include everybody and you just have like legit 6 or 7 main characters, you start to become unfocused. And I feel like this whole entire Disney saga really suffers from that. Now the next is Episode 3. Out of all the prequels, this one is the best. And it is an enjoyable watch. I actually look forward to coming back to it on 4K when I get that into later on today. I feel like the acting is the strongest out of the prequels while still not being great. And the opening scenes get me jazzed every time. And the end battle scene is incredible. Some of the middle of this movie is a little confusing. And it is something that over time I've had to rewatch and kind of get the politics of it. But once you do, I kind of get it. Not everything that this movie tries to do lands, and there are some things that really thud in it. But overall, it is a very enjoyable movie that I enjoy coming back to. Next is the film that actually got me back into Star Wars, and that's The Force Awakens. This movie doesn't have the problem of too many characters. And I definitely feel like it makes this movie the strongest out of all the Disney movies. You know, you have 2 main characters, Rey and Finn, and everybody else kind of feels supporting. You know, you have Harrison Ford back. but he very much, to me, feels like a supporting character that really helps the cast along and makes them feel like, hey, you know, these guys are Star Wars too, like Han Solo here, and that's good. I love the action in this movie. I love the way that the movie looks. I like I love Kylo Ren here, and I just feel like this movie sets up the promise of a very, very strong series that wanes really fast, but I love the promise of it, and I do love this movie. Now, if you haven't noticed, all of the next ones are going to be the original trilogy. They just have such a special place in my heart. So we're going to start with Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Now, this one, I think I've actually seen the most. When I was a kid, I would have flipped this around, and this would have been my favorite. I just loved the land speeders, and just a lot of the action in this movie really clicked for me as a kid. I love the whole end battle. I love the beginning of this movie with the saving of Han, with Jabba's palace. So much of this movie is just so ingrained in my mind as seminal Star Wars that I love it. It is only in hindsight, while I watch this movie and digest it, I, as a grown-up, realize that the storytelling is kind of lacking here, and the whole plot of this movie is a lot of reused from the two that came before, and for that it's a little lower on my list, but this is just seminal movie entertainment for me. And next, I bet you're wondering, am I going to choose the original Star Wars: A New Hope or Empire for the next one? I am going to do A New Hope for my number 2 Star Wars of all time. This movie is great. And out of all of the films, I actually feel like this movie has the best pacing. This movie books. And I feel like it's a lot of fun, and it is the staple of what a popcorn movie should be, and it's a staple for what I love in film in general. Just the wonder of it all, and the larger-than-life grandeur, and all of it. I love the storytelling here. It is great. Some of the acting and some of the dialogue here is a little rough, but besides that, this is just top tier. If I'm going to give it a number grade 10 out of 10, great stuff. And next, I do have to say that Empire Strikes Back is my favorite Star Wars film of all time. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It is just seminal Star Wars. Everything that I think of Star Wars is pretty much right here. It is just great. The character of Darth Vader has never been better than here. You get the Imperial March here that wasn't in the original Star Wars film, and for that I feel like the score here is actually the best John Williams score ever, and this movie just clicks for me. I love the introduction of Yoda and the Dagobah system, and all of what he tries to explain and expand upon Luke and us learning about what the Force is. It is just awesome. I love it. One of my favorite films of all time. So guys, if you haven't guessed by me doing this video, next I am reviewing all Star Wars films that I haven't already reviewed in 4K in 4K. I have them all coming to me. They are actually on a truck getting delivered today as we speak. I'm going to be checking those out tonight, and I will be reviewing that for you guys. It is going to be, I believe, 4 videos, and a lot of work for me, but right now I kind of have the time, and I'm going to get it done. And as always, thank you for watching my videos. You guys are awesome. I don't even say it because you know it, and I will see all of you next time.